This is the Tri-State Time Machine, brought to you by Alex R. White, PLLC, at SueDistractedDriver.com. Each week, your host, Vanessa Hankins, and her guests share memories and stories about the past, the present, and the future of the Tri-State area. That's West Virginia, Kentucky, and the Ohio areas. If you used to live here, or you currently live here, you're going to catch yourself saying out loud, "Wow, I remember that." Now, here's Vanessa.
Hey guys, it's Vanessa, and we're back with the Tri-State Time Machine. As always, we've got our co-host, Jason. Jason, how are you?
Good morning. How are you today?
Good morning. We've had a busy morning. We really have.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you introduce our guest, and we're going to jump right to it because we've kept a lot of his time today. So
yes, we have.
I don't want to keep him longer than we have to.
So, ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to introduce you to Brian Bracey. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, sir. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing very good. So, first and foremost, I want to thank you for your time today. You gave us a great tour, myself and Vanessa, and I've obviously been already once before, a little more lengthy time period, a little more detailed, but we did a great synopsis of that today. If you don't mind, give us a little detail on that.
Happy to give you a little bit of detail. Obviously, we started, and by the way, appreciate the time that y'all spent
Absolutely.
this morning.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, to go through the facilities. We started at the wastewater treatment plant, and a plant that was built and started construction in the late 1950s, and was completed in 1964. Was the very first phase of the primary section of the wastewater treatment plant. It's a regional plant. It's the largest in the state of West Virginia. And it was designed to not only handle the city of Huntington, but 5 other communities: Sarita, Canova, Spring Valley, Northern Wayne, and part of Pea Ridge. All flow of their waste stream comes into the city of Huntington at that wastewater treatment plant. But the plant is old, and the 1964 plant, when it went online, still exists today in the original condition.
Which I was very impressed by.
And I would say it would not be, I say original condition, it's not in the condition that it was in 1964.
Right.
You see the age of that,
Yes.
System on all the mechanical parts and the physical structure itself that are just wearing out.
Absolutely, yeah.
We, as you remember, we started at Headworks, where we originally start screening and taking trash out of the water stream that comes to us. And that part of our screens that we try to capture that material and get it into a dumpster that we can take to a landfill, that is at a low cost value for us.
Right.
But we have, our bar screens are wide. It's an inch in space, so a lot of material still passes through. But what we're able to capture comes at a cost of about $22 a ton to be able to put into a landfill. All that material from the Headworks, we try to not only take that material in and screen it, but we also try to slow the water down and let part of that settle out so it can remove even more.
Yeah.
We call that in the grit chambers.
Okay.
And those grit chambers will remove it. Same thing. We're trying to get more of that material out before it gets through the processing of the plant. And that being able to do that comes at a lower cost value. And when we use air to slow the water down. But it's a gravity system. The plant, once it comes into the plant, it all works by gravity through all the processes all the way out until it goes to the river.
I was truly in awe touring the facility this morning. It was really cool and I love that you put it in layman's terms for me, because I'm definitely not a science guru. It's not my favorite subject at all. But you put it in layman's terms of, some of them are higher pressure, but some of them also operate kind of like what a fish tank does, the pump in a fish tank,
Sure does.
and turns that water and keeps the life, the critters, the bugs, the things like that, the things that eat the poo.
Yeah.
It keeps that wildlife alive and thriving. And without that air pressure, like I never once, the thought would have never occurred to me that was part of the process.
Yeah, most people don't recognize that wastewater treatment plants are biologic by nature.
Absolutely.
And we use natural bugs that are found in all waterways of the U.S. And the worldwide to eat our material, the waste that we put down. It is super
Science
cool.
is so fun.
Yeah.
It really is. It's not my favorite subject, but it absolutely can be fun.
When you see the positive outcomes of it, when science comes into play, it really has a huge benefit for us all.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is clean up the water, which comes from the same streams that we drink from. And so whatever we discharge to it, you want to be better than it came to us. That's the biggest takeaway.
Absolutely.
But yeah, through that process of the primary system, we also at that very headworks area off to the left is we observe the chlorination. We actually bring in 1-ton cylinder tanks that we use chlorine to disinfect the water before it goes out to the Ohio River itself. That process is an old technology, been around forever, but it's dangerous, right?
Right.
The reality of a leak of a chlorine tank, as I shared with you guys, if we had a leak, it's a 2-mile radius of evacuation. It could literally
So
kill.
for all of us down here in Westmoreland, you guys know that Jason and I are Westmoreland people. We're out of here, quick and in a hurry. If
the
something like
Cerrito,
that happens.
Canova, all that, yeah.
Oh, and I start thinking about all the elderly and the disabled people.
And we have an older population in Westmoreland. We really do. And I think in the event that an emergency like that should occur, we've got a problem on our hands. We really do. We really
So not
do.
only the dangers, and just to kind of touch base on the safety aspect of this, not only the dangers of that aspect, and I know we'll touch base a little more so as we go on through this with the new technology that's coming with the new treatment plant, but we talked a little bit about being at 98% capacity. So if, things would start to fail in the flooding, give us an idea without this new facility of where we would be with that.
Yeah, we're the Huntington and our communities that we serve because of the regulatory constraints on our wastewater treatment plant. What we're able to discharge out to the river, that 98% capacity would mean that we were close to stopping all economic development in our communities.
Absolutely.
Here in Huntington and all the other communities. I think that's the biggest risk that at the end of the day, outside of the chlorine and the conditions of that, is we were about to just completely shut Huntington and our communities down.
Have no choice.
With no choice whatsoever. And that's under the current conditions. And every year, there's a little bit more constraints that are placed by the EPA, a little bit more conditions that actually would raise us even farther. So we could, if we were in a stalemate of not making these improvements, then we were coming to the end of the road of any economic development occurring in the city of Huntington.
Right.
And again, the communities that we serve.
Sure.
And a risk that none of us could afford. We have
Absolutely.
too much opportunity here in Huntington.
Oh.
I mean, we're on the cusp of Huntington truly turning around in our surrounding communities.
Yeah.
Today, and we're finally seeing all that work and the work that's currently going on and the work that's being planned by you yourself, the other council members, and all these other people that are looking at the opportunities in Huntington. These old factories that are just gone to the wayside are finally being demolished and being repurposed. And we need to be a part of that opportunity to be able to repurpose them. And having a wastewater treatment plant is vital for that factor.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we were kind of talking between facilities, Jason and I, and, the thought occurred to me, and I just kind of blurted it out because that's kind of what I do in life. We're not ready. We can't grow as a community because we can't sustain it. We really can't. So as much as we're like, everybody come to Huntington, we love it here, it's a great place, we're also like, hey, stay away because we can't sustain it.
We can't sustain it.
You have to facilitate them. Yeah.
That's right. You want economic growth is the prosperity that we see for our future.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And for ourselves and for our kids. And it's the catalyst that is going to truly transform this area and this community and this city. To have a community, you have to have three things. If you want to have a city and have a community, you're going to have water, sewage, right, a sanitary system, and electricity. Those three factors will always promote a community. Sewer is the big part of that factor, right? It's one of the three critical ones that a community has.
Yeah, and funny enough, 2 out of 3 of those, even the Romans recognized this was needed.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah. Yeah. So if you can, kind of talk us through a typical day at the sanitation department.
Yeah, good question. Sanitary. And, so the sanitary department, typical day for us, it depends on what our folks are doing. So the sanitary systems are based in 2 categories. The collection system of collecting all that water and transferring to a second part, the treatment plant. So our collection system guys, their everyday life is going out and ensuring that all the pump stations that pump the water to get it to the wastewater treatment plant are operating. Constantly having to do maintenance and repairs. Just the reality of any O&M is the repairs to those pumps to ensure that they operate and you push the water. I think secondly in the collection system is it's old. This collection system was built in the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Yeah. Right.
So it constantly needs, they get clogs in the lines because of the material that it was made from is finally corroding and deteriorating. So they're constantly repairing it. So we have a team that goes out and keeps our pumps running on a day basis, and we have another team that goes out and makes sure our lines are clean and addressing all the issues that we have. If it's clogged or it's a repair that's necessary, we have folks that do that day in, day out.
Right.
Because we're a combined system, right? We have all these catch basins all throughout the city on all the roads, and that water goes into the same system. We're 85% stormwater combined with our sewer. And so that combined system, those same catch basins need to be cleaned out, and we have a dedicated crew that goes out. We have 5,600 catch basins.
Wow. Yeah.
Over 5,600 catch basins. We average about 24 catch basins a day to be able to clean, because for us to clean them, we have to use water and we have to suck that water out and then transfer it. Now that's combined. It's a combined system. We have to transfer that water down to the wastewater treatment plant, dump it, and go back and do it again.
Right.
And so
you really don't think of that.
We don't think about that. There's that many of them, and how many times and how often we have to clean them. It's why it's so important every time we tell people, don't throw your trash out on the streets. Don't throw your leaves, or when you mow, don't put your grass clippings out there, because it ends up in a place that our teams are going to have to address. It ends up in a problem for people the moment that it clogs a line.
Yeah.
And so that's a typical day for our collection side. Our wastewater treatment plant is a 24/7 operation. We have folks there 24/7. And so they have 3 shifts that rotate through the plant.
Wow.
And they keep the bugs alive.
Yeah.
And they keep the transferring of that water from one tank to another, moving all the waste stream, the material out of that, the sludge that gets removed. That gets compressed and loaded up onto a truck and sent to a landfill. They ensure that the biologic process is always happening. And we're meeting the permittable levels, that we're chlorinating before we discharge, and then we dechlorinate to make sure that chlorine doesn't go out and kill a bunch of things and the fish and the wildlife that sit out into our rivers.
Right. I've got to be honest. I was kind of shocked that you guys. I mean, they're scientists, right, that are working in the lab.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, like I never once imagined, and I've been in Westmoreland. I think 12 years now. I could be wrong. I think it's 12 or 13. And I'm a country girl. I grew up out Lane, East Lynn area, and where we burnt our trash. We did whatever with it, So moving into Westmoreland was like a game changer for me. I'm like, what do you mean you can't throw it down the drain? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You can't just burn it in a pile. But I've kind of become, I guess, what the world now calls a Karen over that. Like, I really am like on top of my neighbors and things like that about those things. And I always kind of stop people when they're complaining about the street sweepers. Oh. That one's a big complaint. But like now, after seeing the facility and seeing your nets, your filters, all the things, we need to do everything that we can on this side of the ground to keep it from having to go through that process at your facility.
Absolutely. And it helps us all, right? Because all that thing, what we collect off the streets, if it ends up in a catch basin, ends up in a pipes, has potential for us clogging or breaking one of our pumps.
Right.
Both are catastrophic. An average pump for us, we have 42 pump stations. The average cost of a pump roughly is about $12 million.
Wow.
I'm sorry, $12,000.
Okay, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, my math suddenly didn't work out.
You've threw a lot of numbers today, so we'll forgive you.
But the pumps can be quite expensive, and the last thing we really want them to get damaged.
Sure.
Because of something that we could prevent.
Right.
And mitigate away. You mentioned street sweeping. We pick up, on an average per year, we pick up more than 2 million pounds of debris.
I believe it.
Off of the roads.
I believe
2
it.
million pounds.
And when you think, and I know our listeners can't exactly imagine this, but we'll send some pictures out.
Yeah.
You think of how much of it still ends up at the facility, even after all of that.
Yes.
So imagine if we weren't doing the street sweeping.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
I kept thinking about that as we were looking at the different sludge and things like that throughout the facility, and I kept thinking to myself, I felt guilty. I told the guys I felt guilty for pressure washing my sidewalks. I'm like, oh my gosh! I was like, look what I'm putting into the ground, But you don't think as the everyday person, you're not thinking, oh, my house looks so nice, I just pressure washed the whole thing. But you're not thinking of all that runoff that is now having to be filtered and put back out.
Where does all that go? And who has to deal with it once it
it never once crossed my mind. So I mean, I think it's wild. My mind is blown from this morning. It really is. I'll ask you this, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, but preparation for inclement weather, what is the program that you use for that? You showed us a little bit about that, but in emergency situations and floods, snowstorms, things like that, how does your team prepare?
Great question. I think it depends on the type of event that we're talking about, a weather event. But we get an update from our fire chief, who keeps us informed about weather conditions coming up, and which he's involved with the state, all the different agencies that emergency management that have to look at. Typically, NOAA is who they follow in the National Oceanographic group that they follow to ensure what the weather patterns forecast it to look like. If it's a rain event, then we do a lot of things. If we look at rain that's going to be coming, we talked about those catch basins. We send a crew out to hit the critical areas, places we know that are problematic from a catch basin being clogged up and then flooding a street. So we have those critical areas across the town that we send crews out to address before the rain comes. I think secondly is the pump stations. They start to look at the sequencing of what pumps should be on and at what level based upon that rain forecast. We can only push so much water to the wastewater treatment plant that it can handle. So in essence, we have to start considering, do we have to tone everything down, slow stuff down, because it's too much water that's going to be coming and we're not able to handle it. I think secondly is, from a preparation standpoint at the plant, is you saw it, it's a gravity plant, right? That when you get too much water in there, a bunch of things start going wrong.
Absolutely.
Because of the old equipment, because of the age of it, all those gears and all those chains and mechanisms, you get too much velocity that's running through there, not enough air to slow it down, things are going to break. So our guys start to prepare for it. You saw that we had tanks that were down. Some of our tanks that were down, we start looking at how do we get these tanks back online, because we need the capacity inside the wastewater treatment plant to be able to allow that more water to come to us so that we are able to process it.
Absolutely.
I think secondly, when we think about the other sides of areas that are at risk, when you get in certain weather conditions that could cause electric outages, which means we lose pump stations,
power,
are we prepared to have generators, which we have some on hand, and some we actually buy, either loan or rent. But we start thinking about those, making sure that we have one available to us. We get into kind of those winter conditions, those ice storms and stuff that we unfortunately have had to deal with as well. You start really looking, because like Westmoreland, or those flood wall pump stations that have their own electric lines, or the substations that power our plant and stuff. You start noticing, you suddenly realize, oh my gosh, I do have some tree limbs and some trees that are pretty close to here. Is it time to go ahead and get these cut down or get these trimmed before we have an accident occur? And the unfortunate side is we've had accidents occur. We've lost power at the wastewater treatment plant or at a pump station, that we start looking at that. It brings to mind, we talk to all the interagencies that are also involved in when weather gets bad. So we have these conversations with HPD, we have these conversations with the fire department, we have these conversations with the Cabell County's emergency management of the what ifs. And how do we coordinate together to work together to figure out when things go wrong, who's at risk, how do we get people out of harm's way, and what can we do to either help the situation or at least to be a body on hand to assist someone. We've had that far too often, but our folks we're very much a player and a team player in that aspect. We sit at the same table with them, knowing that, hey, it takes collectively us together to be able to mitigate this unfortunate weather event that's about to occur or is occurring at the time.
Yeah, and that's one thing I noticed about you all is the great communication you all have. I mean, and I was going to touch base a little bit on leadership and management, but for our listeners, one thing I really, really want to get in depth with is this new facility from an economic standpoint, from, all the different avenues. If you could kind of fill us in just a little bit on that.
Yeah, I'll try to make it brief.
Yeah, you're fine.
There's a lot.
A lot, yes.
The wastewater treatment plant, the original plant was built in 1964. A secondary processing system was added to it in the early 80s. And that's the wastewater treatment plant. Right?
Yeah, right.
You would typically see capital infrastructure, public infrastructure replaced or repaired on about a 30 or 40-year cycle. There's no repair or replacements ever been done to our wastewater treatment plant since it was incepted, right, since 1964. And so it's beyond its useful life.
Right.
And we're way beyond. Every time you kick the can or don't go do just that, replace or repair it, rehabilitate the system, there's a cost value. There's a rise in economic value that takes place. On the average, if you look at the scale of construction economic values, that rise is about 2.3% on the average year over year.
Mm-hmm.
So you think about if I get beyond 40 years, right, I've added another 2.3% for the 41st year.
Right.
I've added another 2.3% the 42nd year, and on and on and on. You suddenly go, wait, this plant, if we would have rebuilt this plant in the early 2000s,
Mm-hmm.
it would have literally have been half the cost.
Yeah.
This is in all cost in, this is a $185 million project.
Wow.
And you think about that and you go, wait a second, we could have done this for half the price.
Half the price,
If
yeah.
people would have just said, hey, this is what you have to do, and it would ensure it. We would not have been at 98% capacity.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
We wouldn't be dealing with the economic conditions that we have with, like, handling the sludge. We used to incinerate and burn. Y'all saw
Yes,
the old
yes, yes.
incinerator. And we used to burn our sludge. Very cost-effective way of doing it.
Which makes sense to us outweighing people.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Today, right, I like that. But today, you get all the residual effects. Not only do you have the smells of that sludge that's having to be processed and held and loaded up into a truck and then transported to a landfill, but you have a tremendous amount of it. 4 to 5 trucks per day.
Yeah.
And that's not a pleasant process, and it's a costly one.
I was going to say, and it's not
Very
a cheap
costly.
one. So
Roughly about $55 a ton.
Yeah.
That we send to a landfill. That's a lot.
And you had said that we're utilizing several landfills, right?
We average on a monthly basis 4 landfills.
Okay.
And when we get a lot of flow and we get really high, 5 landfills.
Wow.
Our sludge is not in for a good composition. So an upgrade to a plant, right? Let's get rid of some risk. Let's take away chlorine.
Sure.
Too much of a risk. Right?
Absolutely it is.
We don't want that evacuation, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. Westmoreland, all those people that have to evacuate. You have Camden Park, one of the oldest amusement parks in the United States.
Right.
Yeah.
And imagine if we had a leak during the summer months.
When they're full, yeah.
Oh,
my daughter loves Cannon Park. More than your average human. It's so weird.
Well, and I think about our elderly too. I mean,
Yeah.
people that may not have access to get the knowledge to them that, hey, you've got to evacuate.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then they're stuck in harm's way.
Right.
And that would be devastating.
It really would.
I think secondly, you think about that in harm's way, then you think about, well, how can we improve processes? If you take chlorination away, then what are the alternatives? UV is the biggest alternative.
Which
right?
I love. Yeah.
Which is going to be really cool.
Simple way. We pump a tremendous amount of air, right, to slow the water down and to keep the bugs alive.
Yeah.
Well, today pumps are at least air pumps or compressors are much more efficient. And our average bill, I didn't share it when we were on the tour, but most people don't know is our average electric bill at the plant, just for the electricity to run those big blowers, that's $45,000 a month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, think about that.
I think I actually knew that from working with Brenda. Like, oddly enough, when I worked with Brenda during COVID, when we were doing billing and stuff like that, I think I did know that. Yeah.
Crazy. I mean,
So you'll switch to UV, obviously.
We'll switch to UV, which will have a positive benefit. Get rid of the risk factor. Improving the blowers and going to smaller bubble blowers.
Yeah.
Much more efficient, better for the staff on their hearing. That's for sure. And then, of course, the biggest thing is increasing capacity.
Absolutely.
Increasing the capacity. And obviously, last part of our processing is how we handle sludge. That sludge, as you saw, was wet.
Very.
By water volume, we try to get it to a 22% dry. That's what the landfills will accept. And that's hard.
Right.
Based upon our sludge conditions. and we're going to move from 22% solids to 85% solids. That's a
Which we got to see. We got to see your samples of what the company came in and showed you what they're going to be able to get you to. And I mean, you're comparing. If you've ever pressure washed that slush that you get, that's like that buildup of the sand and the dirt and things like that you can physically pick up in your hands and it stays together, is reduced to like a dust.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah.
It really is. It's just like a thick
it's
dust.
it's a dust, and that's going to make these places that we're hauling our stuff off to, they're going to be a lot happier with the city of Huntington at that point,
And dust that smells organic, like you would go get topsoil.
Like soil, yes.
Soil that you're going to go put in your garden, and instead of the porta-john smell
right.
that you have currently.
Well, and that's
right.
what I wanted to kind of let our listeners know, especially in the Westmoreland area.
Yeah.
From the beginning of time, I've had that place since 2003 off and on that I've been there, and they always talk about the smell. With this new technology and the way this new facility is going to be, that smell is going to go down dramatically. It's going to be unbelievable. So that kind of answers the question to so many people. Are we going to get rid of some of that smell? Yes.
Yeah, by the way, they anticipate a 74% reduction in odor control.
That's an astronomical number for that.
That really is.
Especially when you and all the people in Westmoreland
Yeah.
who've been dealing with that smell for all these years.
Yeah.
And suddenly it's like, oh, wait a second, what happened to it?
Because,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Get back to some normalcy that none of us really know.
That's right. Wouldn't know unless you live near a Wastewater.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. You really don't. So how can we as residents better support the efforts and make it easier on your side of things?
Yeah, I think, it's a great question, by the way. How could you support the efforts? One is to be an active member, right? To understand what our challenges are. Educate, obviously, this podcast is a great way to educate the public on the challenges that public infrastructure has. And then what can be done to resolve it, and what positive impact will it have when you resolve it. You think about just the positive impact of a wastewater treatment plant. You obviously increase the level of safety for the community, you reduce the nuisance, right, from the smell, and then you have this positive impact, being able to allow more economic development to happen at in the communities that we live in.
We love growth.
Those three things are the biggest part, but you would have to understand what we're challenged by. And then we get questioned. You mentioned street sweeping. You get questioned of why are we doing that? It's a waste of money.
That's all you hear. Yes.
Behind the truck, and it's like, well, there is dust that remains, right? They capture a lot of it. It's not 100%. It's not a vacuum cleaner like you.
Not at all.
Right.
House.
It's for big debris and things.
It's for big debris and stuff. It's the things that really cause us big headaches at a treatment facility. And us doing that job removes a tremendous amount of other problems that occur if we don't do it.
Right.
But to know that, you would have to know what are our challenges.
Yeah.
Why do we do the things that we do? I think the other side, we get this a lot from our public, is everything that we have just about outside of that plant and those pump stations, and even those, is mainly underground. I
found that out the hard way today. Pictures to come.
we don't physically, we're not able to see it. Our folks, even the staff that work for them, it's all underground.
Right.
And so many times we're unaware of the challenges that we're faced. We don't see the potholes that pop up throughout because we had a line that has collapsed.
Right.
We don't know about a clog unless you call us to tell us we have a problem. And hey, my water's backing up in my house. I just washed clothes.
Right.
And it's not draining. So keeping us informed is helpful because we don't know it. We have, I think the other side is we have 390 miles of combined line systems. 390 miles of underground lines. Some as small as 4 inches, some as big as 72 inches.
Gosh.
So you think about that. We have some that we can physically walk through, and some that we can barely get our hand through.
Right.
And many of these go from depths of 2 feet all the way down to our deepest one is at 38 feet.
Right.
Our deepest line, 38 feet in depth. And then we get it to a pump station, and pump stations on the average, our lift station and pump stations, they average about 40 feet in depth. And one we went to today or partially went to today.
I like that wording.
It was 47 feet in depth. I mean, it's a huge, deep hole with all the components at the very bottom.
Very bottom, yeah.
And I'm mind blown that your guys and gals are going up and down those ladders, the steps, all of that. Like I physically, I don't know. What do you think I made it down? Like maybe 8 steps? Maybe, if that.
Maybe.
If
Yeah.
that. And like, I literally could not lift my right leg. Like I went to step forward and it just wasn't happening. I was like, I can't do it. And you're wondering, I think his name was Scott. Was it Scott?
Yeah,
He was wonderful. He went down and took pictures for me and showed me what I was missing out on since I'm afraid of heights. And you mentioned, reporting things, let you guys know, because if you don't know, you don't know. I think that's a really good time to remind the people at home that here in Huntington, we have this wonderful app, Huntington 311. And you can literally go on there and say, I did laundry today and it's backing up. Is that something that's at my house, or is that something on the city side of things? What does that look like, and how can we resolve it? And the city has been so wonderful to me. I love the guys that come out with the big vacuum trucks and all the things like that. They're a hoot. I always have the best time with them. They're very helpful down at Safety Town. But they're on it. They come right out. They'll let you know if it's on your side or the city side, and what the solution is to the problem.
Our guys try to help resolve anybody's problem. The hope that, the big thing on, like, if it's a home or it's a business, hopefully they have a clean out on the outside where we can get
and they're great about doing that. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we're willing to go on people's property to help
Yeah,
them clear
they're
their
wonderful.
line, to figure out if it's on their line. Even if it's on their line, if we can clear it out for them, we're happy to do it.
Sure, and that's great communication. It helps everybody.
It sure does.
Yeah.
It sure does. They're our customers,
Right.
but they're also our neighbors.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And my belief and our staff's belief is we're all family here, right?
Yeah.
So we help each other when we can, and we do the best that we possibly can. Doesn't mean we always get it right. Doesn't mean we get it right at the time that they're wanting it. And I know my wife would be if we got a clog at our house, we want it done, resolve
Right now.
Right.
Yes, yesterday.
And the unfortunate side of an old system and many of these lines that are deep, sometimes it takes a little bit of time for us to get in
Sure.
and do it.
Absolutely.
But we have crews. We have 3 dedicated crews, and all they do is repair our lines. They literally go out each and every day and do digs.
And they're everywhere. They really are. They're all over the place. And I get lucky a lot of the times. Some of the guys they go to lunch at like Burger King and Wendy's, the local haunts, and I'll go in and grab something and I'll sit down with them and hang out with them and talk to them. What's your day been like? What do you guys got into? And they're always such a good time, and they really do care about this community. They're not just people working for the city of Huntington. These are people that live here as well, and they care so much that you are happy with the job that they're doing.
Absolutely.
They really do.
You can tell they
really
always
do.
take great pride in everything they're doing.
They do.
One thing I'd like for you to touch base with our listeners just a little bit is the dangers that your guys are going through. I mean, this is, and I really want everybody to listen to this. This is serious.
That was eye-opening for me today.
Yeah, I thought we talked about obviously the chlorine, and that presents a level of danger.
Sure.
All these systems, there's 2 utilities, as you know, the Water Quality Board,
Right.
Stormwater Utility, and the Sanitary, Huntington Sanitary Board. Those utilities, their machinery, their components were built back in the early. You think about this would be the 1950s or as early as the 1930s.
Yeah, some during wartime. Yeah.
During the wartime. And that technology is old technology that has a level of risk that is not acceptable today. And doesn't meet any code whatsoever.
Right.
And an example that we showed you physically is our guys literally walk up and engage a breaker to turn things on that's an oil breaker that's basically a miniature hydrogen bomb.
Yeah.
And to be able to operate the pumps, they have to engage that oil breaker standing right at the panel to manually engage it.
I really think that a lot of people at home, I didn't know, so I'm going to assume a lot of people at home, maybe I'm the only stupid person, I don't know, but they're not walking into these buildings that you see with the locks on them with the green doors. They're not walking into these and flipping a switch. There's levers. There's hydraulics.
Stories of ladders to climb.
Yeah, many ladders. Just so many, and the pressure gauges. I was overwhelmed by the amount of pressure gauges that they have to know how to read. And again, this is old technology. So it's not easy for them.
No, and like we said earlier, like where we partially saw the pump station.
Yeah.
Most of the components are down at the bottom.
So they're going down underground, right?
Yeah. Some of our stations have steps, like the one we went in. Others just have a ladder.
Yeah.
And
Which is way scarier than the steps. Let me tell you.
I would say way scarier than the steps. I would agree. But they crawl down each and every day. Because of the size of our lines or the way in which our plant was designed, we send people in to crawl into spaces, combined spaces, where they literally have to put on scuba suits to have full.
We saw some guys gearing up for it today.
They're gearing up for a dive today. Where they have to do that to go in and check or provide maintenance on many of this equipment. And they do that each and every day.
Right.
And what people don't understand is, that toxic environment is risky for them. We put a lot of monitoring and safety mechanisms in place to ensure that at the end of the day that they go home to their family. But there's still a level of risk that we can't take away, like those breakers, like those switches that they have to engage, or they walk into a transformer, and literally standing beside a transformer, turn it on. And not a transformer that's as big as
that's what I was going to say. And standing beside these things, hopefully we grabbed a few pictures that we're going to share with you guys on our Facebook page and all of our other social media. But standing beside these things, you feel so minute, so small. I can't imagine the bravery, especially with these guys knowing, they know more than I know, obviously. They know the risk of what they're doing, and they do it anyways. They do it for our community. And I think that says something great about your people that you have working for you.
No, it says a lot about those men and women who do this for us, right? They go in and do their job so that we can live comfortably in our houses, in our communities,
absolutely,
in our businesses.
And they're sight out of mind.
Yeah,
so.
well, that's what I was going to say. Like, we, as an average community member, like, we don't even like to plunge the toilet. So imagine going down into these crawl spaces in these suits that, like you said, putting their health at risk, and they're in our feces, like, So we really, as a community, I think we need to do a better job of making sure that those people, the men and women, they know how appreciated they are, because I had no idea. I really didn't.
Well, and speaking about suits, I think about the suits they have to wear with the arc flash suits.
Oh, yeah, that
when you're
was
talking
serious.
Miniature atom bombs and you're talking the gauges and the way things are being, talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, for us to be able to engage our pump stations, especially the flood wall pump stations, and at the wastewater treatment plant, our guys have to put an arc flash suit on, because the way these were built back in the day, they thought that was the
technology. Yeah.
Today, you're more than today you would have the same components built in a station. You would be 20 feet away,
right?
Hitting a switch on a wall and not being instead of being right beside it. To be beside it means that you're having to put on a rubber suit, wear rubber boots, put a rubber mat down, and still stand beside something that could explode.
Yeah, you still have to take the impact.
You still got to be willing to take that impact.
Yeah.
And yet they still do it every high water, every time that river rises. I have men and women that go out and do that for us each and every day. And they're dedicated to their job.
It's amazing.
They truly are servants.
They really are, yes.
And these are also, I think about parts and things like that. These are not things you can go get anymore. So you're also losing that aspect, but more importantly, the craftsmanship of people that know how to run this stuff.
It's one of the scary. Y'all met Donnie today.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, we have two guys left that have more than 30 years in their job. And they're I call them I don't call them the dinosaurs, but they're dinosaurs of their knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're the institutional knowledge that we're literally losing.
You mean Donnie's not 27 like he claimed?
But that institutional knowledge is going out, and they don't train it even in schools, even at Marshall.
Right.
They don't train, and any electrical engineers don't get trained on this high voltage because it's not utilized.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
They lower the voltage down. They have better components. They move from a safety aspect, they move all the things that put you at risk, and they move that away from you to ensure that you're not going to be harmed.
Right.
And yet ours are not that way because of the age of it.
Right.
You mentioned there's one thing I think it's also beneficial for the public, right? Between the two utilities, the flood wall, right? Here's this 1930s technology.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can't pull an item off the shelf. Everything that something breaks, we have to figure out how we get it manufactured and replaced, and that comes at a high cost value.
High cost, yeah.
I think the other side of it is the fact of how does the government view this, right? The government today they built this system for our communities like Huntington, Sarita, Canova, across the river, Parkersburg, but they expect these communities to now foot the bill to be able to rehabilitate them.
Right.
And I think that's a lot of the things that public doesn't understand is we have a tremendous amount of responsibility to keep it operating. So every time that river comes up, and this year alone, we've had 5 high water events. 5 times the river has risen, and we've activated pump stations to pump the interior drainage out. But at the end of the day, the government still expects Huntington and the residents to be able to rehabilitate these. And as I shared with you, we're planning on rehabilitating 2 of the sanitary pump stations right now. And the 2 sanitary pump stations, by estimate of combined, is about $36 million.
Wow.
And
big number.
A big number. And they're much smaller than the flood wall pump stations.
Much more
Yes, much smaller.
Much smaller. And we have 17 of them. And one of those is one of the largest pump stations ever built.
Which is super cool that we have that technology right here in Huntington. Well, at its time. But we're still using it today. Still using it today.
Yeah.
Today was so eye-opening for me. I'm still processing. I probably look dazed and confused over here because I'm still taking it all in and sorting it out in my brain. But something that you were talking about earlier today was how your guys. I had asked the question, how do you guys prepare when a water emergency is about to occur, things like that, yada yada. And you said to me, or I think Scott said to me, we're more worried about what's coming from Pittsburgh than what's here. And that thought never occurred to me. And I feel like a lot of people at home probably don't think about that at all either.
Yeah, it's there are some times when we have to worry about the weather conditions here. Right? Fort Pole's a good example.
Yeah.
Right. Creek, where we could see flooding occurring because of localized rain.
Right.
But the bigger challenge is what's happening north of us.
Yeah.
And that's what the public doesn't see.
Which makes perfect sense, but I never thought about it.
What we get is what's flowing down, not really from us, but what's flowing from up above.
Yeah.
Right.
And really, I say that's what we're monitoring. Pittsburgh
right.
Is going to be the
makes
condition
perfect
we're about
sense.
to face here in Huntington.
That's what we have to look forward to, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Now, this is a good point for our listeners as well. Explain to them how these pump stations actually function so that everybody has an idea of what really happens. Because I think, when we've had our last flooding, so many people have turned the pumps on because they just don't quite get it. So, and that's okay. But that's why we're here today.
If you don't know, you don't know.
Right.
But we're here today to learn. So
on an average day, right, and the river is at the normal level, what comes into the city stormwater-wise or in the creeks flows right out to the river. Naturally. Many of our pump stations, some of these, the water flows through the pump station, out through a pipe that goes directly to the river, or in Port Pole Creek's example, it flows right underneath the pump station itself, right out to the river. When rain occurs in parts of our city, like in just north of the watershed of Fort Pole, rain occurs out in the county. What ends up happening is that water necks down like a funnel through the city, and then goes out widens out to the opposite side of the funnel into the floodplain area of Fort Pole's watershed before it goes out to the river. But it's still flowing naturally to the river. There's no pump to turn on. There's no way. It's not even at the level of reaching the intakes.
Yeah.
And we got some great photos, and I think the photos will help elaborate on that to help people understand. But because if the water doesn't get to a certain point, there's nothing that can be done.
That's right.
You can't pump what's not there.
Yes.
You cannot pump what's not there.
Right.
And it's just going to naturally flow. And that's true for all of them.
Yeah.
When the river comes up, we shut gates and we stop the river from coming into the city.
Absolutely.
That's the reason we want to stop it. We don't want it to come inside. And at that time, the water has to build up to a level that allows us to reach an intake of a pump. Right. And then we're able to pump it out. But that's high. On the average, so from a water standpoint, our average height of the Four Poles watershed is a good example where the average height at the pump station is about 24 feet, 22 to 24 feet. Depends on how, if we had a little bit of rain and during dry conditions,
Right.
it's lower. It's got to reach 42 feet before it ever reaches the intake
Right.
of the pump.
So we're talking a substantial amount of rain.
We're talking a substantial amount of rain and water.
Yeah.
Over a long period of time.
Over a long
right.
period of time.
Over
Yeah.
a long period of time.
Yeah.
We could literally still see, because of that bottleneck, because
Yeah.
of that funnel, you could still see an impact of flooding occurring and us being a high water event, and it's still not reaching the intake.
Just not quite there.
That's right, because it goes to the funnel, goes to the pinch point,
Right.
and then comes back out and widens out again,
Yeah.
opposite side of the funnel.
Just like
Yeah.
it takes time from Pittsburgh to get to us.
No different.
Yeah.
No different.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that happens again all throughout the city.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what people don't understand is we don't get to just go flip a switch. It takes a level of height
Yeah.
Right.
that triggers it. And by the way, and that level of height it's not that we're setting that level of height. Back in the 1940s, the Corps of Engineers says you don't turn that station on until it reaches this height. And part of the reason they did that is because they wouldn't want us to burn a pump up
Right.
or let it run dry.
Yes.
And so our guys and gals have to make sure that when it hits a certain level at a station, that's when we turn things on or when we turn them off.
Yeah. Definitely.
So I have a random question, and it's not on any of our paperwork, Jason. So I'm pulling this out of left field. And I'm sure you know, because you are really good with data, I've learned today. How many people does your department employ, like, as a whole?
I got 104. Well, it's a good question you're asking. So I have 85 employees between the two utilities. We also have temporary employees as well. So I have a total of 104 today, employees that provide operations between the two utilities.
Wow.
And obviously, because we man at the wastewater treatment plant, we're employing more than 20 something people there, just because it's a 24/7 operation that doesn't shut down. And then we have our collections team. Then to get our money, we have to bill.
Yes.
And we have a whole accounting team, and then because of data. The one thing that's interesting for me, and the one thing that I find for the public, is if you think about when all this was built, they drew a plan on a map, on a plat map,
Right.
and they drew that out and said, here's what we're going to build, or here's how it was installed and where it was installed on maps. And we have hundreds of thousands of sheets of these drawing maps. Today, we're moving all those maps, and have been for almost 24 years now, moving that into a GIS system, similar to what the city uses, right? To know for electronically where are things located. The other side, and that takes time.
Absolutely.
The reality of all utilities, public utilities and private utilities, all of us, is we don't exactly know all the pipes we have. We know we can see a manhole in a manhole, right? You can see the ring, and you can say, all right, I know that we have a pipe that runs in between those two, right? That's easy to know.
Right.
But there are other areas where we don't have a manhole. We know that there's a house over there or a business, but
We know that they've got it somehow, but not sure how.
We're not sure how. We're not sure exactly where. We don't know the size or the depth. So today we have a whole team that goes out, and that's what they're doing. They're collecting all that information and putting it into a GIS format, so that we can know where it's at, what the size, what's the depth, what's the condition of the lines itself. That tells us that once you collect all that information, you're able to analyze it in a very different way.
Sure.
If you think about 390 miles, what's the first mile of line that you should replace? Or what's the last line that you should replace? If it's not the first line, just tell me the 27th line that you should replace.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You would say, how in the world
that's what I was going to say. I would never know.
Yeah, until you know your lines, and then you understand criticalities of lines. If you think about a sewer line, it's that sewer line is servicing a group of people, a group of homes or businesses. Well, the ones that are obviously the most critical are the ones that serve the most amount of people.
Right.
Those are the most critical.
Absolutely.
You have to first know where your lines are to then determine who's connected to that line.
Right.
And then what level of connection would determine, and what condition would that line be that you would want to pay more attention to. I think in simple terms, what line services Cabell Huntington Hospital? Right, a critical line that you don't have a failure because you can't afford to have a backup in a hospital.
Right.
Devastating. I'm not saying a person's home is not equally as important.
Well, I mean, you have to look at like what happened with Hurricane Katrina and the hospitals and stuff like that happened. I mean, they're still, and
my hometown.
Oh, really?
I'm from New Orleans.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
So you have to think of those examples of what happened there. I mean, there's still hospitals that are set abandoned that you see like these YouTube explorers going into and stuff like that, and they've got the sludge and they've got all the things built up for floors. And, everyone's like, well, why don't they rebuild? Why don't they use that? Why are they just letting the building? It's not usable anymore. Like, its infrastructure is done.
It devastated my hometown. And it was a catalyst that has a bunch of other factors that we even here in Huntington that we face today.
Yeah.
Because of the unfortunate examples that happened during Katrina and the disasters that happened in that New Orleans, Louisiana area, and then throughout the coast, but in particular New Orleans. But a good example would be today the Corps recognizing that levees and flood walls are a big protective system that has, if failed, has a catastrophic impact on a community. Right, for New Orleans, billions of dollars, $12 billion, and $12 billion. And a community that still to this day, my hometown, is not how it was when I was a kid.
Not at all.
Right.
Not at all.
No.
And they're still, as you described, they're still abandoned places because it will not be able to be rebuilt because of the devastation that happened. That triggered the Corps of Engineers to realize that they have to do a better job inspecting these levee and flood wall systems. FEMA, who has to come to the rescue when a disaster happens, FEMA needed to determine, well, what level of risk are these systems, and what amount of money does the government have to foot if something went wrong in these communities that are protected.
Right.
So now there's these additional levels of an inspection that happens for us annually of our system, our levee and flood wall system, and a pump station.
Right.
And then FEMA goes through a 5-year certification process to be certified that it's a protected system. A non-certified protective system, and you say, well, what would happen if you didn't get certified, right? If you didn't pass inspection, you don't get certified. That triggers the protective systems are typically in floodplain areas. If without the system, that area would flood, right? You would say, okay, so if we don't have this system, what would happen? The FEMA had determined through a bunch of engineering LIDAR and topography views, said, okay, well, this area is going to be in the floodplain or the floodway. Mm-hmm. Now that you have a protective system that's going to protect it from flooding, well, now that system is no longer in the floodplain. If you're in the floodplain or in the floodway, the unfortunate side, if you have a mortgage, if you're a business, the risk factor is they want you to have insurance. They want you to have flood insurance.
Yes.
So everybody that's in a protective system does not have to have flood insurance. But if you're not certified, if you're not accredited by FEMA, then that means that basically you don't have a flood wall, even if it's there.
Even if it's there, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Then that means all the business. Then you start thinking about in Huntington, what would that mean?
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking
Virginia,
about,
Washington University, City of Huntington.
City of Huntington, yeah.
Cabell County.
We're surrounded by it,
You're surrounded by even their own Corps of Engineers.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Would have to have some level of protection insurance-wise that we would foot the bill for.
Absolutely.
If it wasn't. So since Katrina, all these things, as always say, a disaster happens and you learn from them.
Absolutely. Hindsight.
Those disasters happen that do have an effect on us today positively, but also carry some level of uncertainty for us. Huntington, here's the other thing, public, and I know I've shared this on our tour. Huntington has 2 protective systems. They have Guyandotte and Altizer, and because of the Guyandotte River is separated than Huntington, which to Huntington they consider Huntington downtown, but the city of Huntington through Westmoreland, right, has a protective system that keeps it from being in the floodplain. The Guyandotte and Altizer are accredited system. They're certified levee and flood wall systems. Downtown to this day is still not. And we've been working through that process. Huntington had a problem, Harris Riverfront Park. We had an unknown event occur, a sinkhole that formed, and a levee, a pump station, and flood walls that started tilting like the Tower of Pisa towards the river.
I remember that. I remember being at like a music festival and you could see it.
That station was 49 feet in depth.
Oh, wow.
And that means something below 49 feet was moving,
Yeah.
and causing all that to tilt towards the river.
Right.
And we had no unknown factor. We've gone through and stabilized.
I was going to say, there's a lot of work.
There's a lot of work that went in, but we're at the final stages of that project. That's the last hurdle to finally get Huntington's, to ensure that now we're preliminary from a FEMA standpoint.
Right.
Preliminary in the system as a protected system.
Right.
They're waiting for us to finalize this work so they can say we're certified, that this wall that was built in 1930s is here to continue and levees
To protect
continue
us,
to
yeah.
protect us. But it is a hurdle for that. And brought it up only because of the Trina comment of what that meant for us today, but it's a
Right.
good thing. Good thing that the government is doing better to be a watchdog over us,
Yeah.
to ensure that, hey, is Huntington doing its job, to ensure that when a rain event occurs, when flooding up in Pittsburgh, it's happening and it's coming our way, that our system's prepared to handle it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's vital that we learn from these problems that have happened before.
Oh my gosh, yes. And to ensure that, hey, we're not having to, economically speaking, having to devastate this whole area because now everybody has to have flood insurance.
Yeah.
Right. Do you have any more questions, Jason?
The only other thing I would like to get a little more insight on, just for the general public, is once this new water treatment facility is built, first and foremost during construction, what is it going to do to impact the entire city? How much is it going to not only cost, not us, but how much is it going to cost in general? But more importantly, the jobs it's going to create and the money that it's going to sustain into our entire community.
It's a great question you're asking. So, obviously the first thing is that it's a 5 to 6 year plan.
Right.
Because our plant doesn't get to shut down. When you rehabilitate
Right.
the plant, it still has to operate. We don't get to turn the water off. We don't tell you,
Right.
take a bath, or don't wash your dishes.
Right.
Everybody's going to be able to. There's no impact to the community while we're doing construction. The plant will still operate. In the construction phases, it's been phases over the years, that our plant has to continue to be able to operate. It does kind of change our permits. We have some modifications to that we negotiated with the EPA, knowing that there'll be an impact by this construction.
Right.
But the plant will continue to operate, I wouldn't say as is, but it'll continue to operate to be able to work as inefficiently as it is today through the construction period. The positive impact, obviously, is the jobs, right?
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about hundreds of jobs that's being created for this. We actually did a economic evaluation on the project itself. What a lot of the public doesn't know is this is the largest public infrastructure project ever done in the state of West Virginia.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Right
Yeah.
in Westmoreland.
Right
Yeah.
in Westmoreland. Wow.
And so we wanted to understand what impact this is going to have, just from a taxation position for the city, right?
Yeah.
The city, that's a return of about $2.5 million annually during the construction.
Annually, yeah.
Annually.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What
It
that
really
economically
is.
means, I'll turn that around over a 20-year span, right? So that's what you typically look at when you do an economic analysis.
Yeah.
That returns because of our ability to handle that development impact, right? When we're 98%, and to reduce that down to roughly about 60% of an impact from a permittable levels.
Yeah.
That means that gives you a positive economic income of about $900 million.
Wow.
Just take a step back and go, wait a second, in 20 years you're saying has a 900, that's what again, it goes back to the three critical factors: water, sewer, and electricity.
Absolutely.
Right? And when you have those and you have those efficiently, then opportunities are endless.
Yes.
And then for
Absolutely.
Huntington, this is an opportunity. This is an endless opportunity for us. During the construction process, because of the sequencing, we'll be as low as about 100 staff that'll be in the construction process and subs and stuff, but we'll see as high as about 240.
Wow.
During some phases of the
So
construction
listening to
phases
that at
themselves.
home, if you're a business-minded person, now is the time to open up those restaurants because all these people need to eat lunch.
Yep.
I was gonna
We need you in Westmoreland. They're going to need a place to stay, a place to eat, everything.
Place to stay and a place
Yes.
to eat. And I just thought about, we were joking about this yesterday, just about, you probably won't be able to get into just Camden Corner or
Oh, I know. Our
something.
little best kept secret is not going to be a secret.
It's not going to be a secret.
Well, I've tried to market this so much to our community to say you all don't realize what's coming and how hard so many people have worked on this. We've never in the entire history of Westmoreland, or I mean, really even looking from a city standpoint, when the last time something so economically great has happened, and this is going to be as great as it gets, and it's going to have such a great impact, and I'm just so excited for it.
Me too.
Yeah,
me too.
And you've worked very hard on this. I know you
Yeah,
have.
congratulations.
It's not me. It's it's a
well,
team.
your team.
This is
Yes.
a team.
Sure
It's
it is.
A lot of people say, "Well, look what you're doing." I was like, "No, this is a team effort here. It takes a lot of people, a lot of coordination.
Yes.
It's a team, and that's both internal and external. Right?
Absolutely.
It takes council members.
Yep.
It takes commissioners. It takes regulatory bodies to all come together to make this happen. And I'm just fortunate that I'm a member of a great team.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just trying to be a part of it, help any way we can, and we have great representation all the way around now, and great things are happening, and I appreciate that.
Oh my gosh, me
Absolutely.
too.
Yeah.
Me too. And I 100% agree with you there. Great representation today. Our city's in a fantastic direction.
It really is. We have some great things coming, and it's funny. I think about when Patrick and I were both running. I said, and I think he thought I was kidding at first. I said, I really think that with this great effort of team that we're putting together, and all the people that are already in place that are great, and the people we're bringing in, this will be the biggest impact and the greatest development since the beginning stages of our forefathers of this city. And he kind of laughed it off, and I said, no, I'm serious. And then the more things when we talked, he said, you know what, you were right. He said,
You're
I
such
really
a
think
history
this.
buff. I love it. You're always geeking out on it.
I know. But I really think that the people don't understand how great the city's getting ready to be. And I think we'll surpass Charleston. I believe in that.
I do believe that.
Yeah.
I do. I think we're all, I said this before, and I'll say it again. I think we're on the cusp of greatness to come.
Yes.
We are already moving in the direction. There's going to be some naysayers.
Sure there is.
Absolutely.
You expect that. Beyond the naysayers is we are progressing at a pace that people don't see yet.
Yep.
But the visual aspects of it are about to show.
Yeah.
And, you go down to the High Lawn and go see the old ACNF, go see the tear down of the old Flint Group property.
Yes.
Go see what's happening over, Cofield development over there.
Right.
Yes.
Just want to look at all the work that they're doing to
Absolutely.
really transform this community.
Yeah, I encourage Westmoreland and the city of Huntington to embrace this and hold on tight, because there's a lot of great things coming.
Yes, sir.
Well, we appreciate you very much. Vanessa, you got anything else you want to add?
I was going to close out with one last question. What keeps you motivated to do this work every day? I had asked you while we were on the tour how long you had been doing it, and you surprised me by telling me that your past career had nothing to do with this. So I even told Jason this on the phone in the car between facilities that we were exploring. I was blown away by your knowledge and the data and the numbers that you keep straight and you're very aware of and knowledgeable of. I was so blown away by it, and I think it's a beautiful thing, for one, but secondly, it also, how lucky we are as a city to have you, because anybody could have taken that job and just sat at a desk and not cared. They could have just been laissez-faire about it and been like, I'm just collecting a paycheck. But you care about this community, and I can tell with your passion and the way you talk about the work.
My wife and I kind of laugh. This was my career, which, as you know, was pharmaceuticals, and this was a 3 or 4 year stop in my career plan. And the fortunate side is we found a community and a home, and a place that we truly feel we fit in.
Yeah.
And if you fit into a place, then you need to be an active member.
Absolutely. I agree.
You have to.
Yeah,
Yes.
you have to be. The thing that keeps me motivated every day, I think that was your original question.
Yes.
Is being a part of this positive change for a place I call home.
Yeah.
And,
I love that.
And that's what keeps me motivated. And I feel so fortunate. I go to work with such great men and women each and every day that are passionate about their job, love what they do.
They were
do it to
so
the best
welcoming to
of their
us today. They
Yeah.
really were, and I felt out of place because we're in their way. They're at work and we're touring, and all of them are telling us they're sorry that that they're walking down the hallway, and I'm like, are you kidding? Don't be sorry. You're at work. We're in your way. But they were all so grateful for us to be there and to learn what they were doing. And I'm overwhelmed with a lot of emotions about today, but I feel like a better community member for having toured the place and having that better understanding of what all's going on over there. Because when I first moved, like I said, I was a country girl. When I first moved into town, I thought it was going to be the worst thing in the world. I'm like, oh my God, we have neighbors. We've got these trash cans. Like, we can't burn our trash anymore. Like, what is going on? We got to pay for people to take our trash. Like, all these things, you know. And I've settled right into it. And I've grown to love our community in ways that are indescribable. I do so much with youth, and I get out in the community, and I do the neighborhood associations, and I do all the things that I think is the positive impact in any way that I can do it. But you just don't know those extra layers behind the scenes of these facilities that allow us to flush our commodes.
Yeah.
Like, you really don't you really don't get it. You don't get it until you see it, or you learn about it listening to this podcast today.
Absolutely. This podcast is critical for people to understand.
It really is.
More that goes on than just turning the sink off and washing your dishes, washing your clothes. A lot happens once that water leaves your house.
Absolutely. There's so much science, y'all. Like, I'm blown away by it.
And honestly, that's the reason I wanted to have you on the show, and I do thank you for coming on.
Yes,
is because
absolutely. Thank you so much.
I wanted to get this out to the people. This is such a great message. It's so vital. The science behind it, to the safety aspects, economic development. I mean, you have so much going on, and obviously you have a great passion for the city.
Absolutely.
That's why you're still here. So we appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
It was an honor for me to be here with you guys.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate it.
You share a message and deliver it to the public that I'm unable to. And you're a critical part that people learn. Because I can tell you, when I stepped into the role I had, as you said, my background wasn't this, I had no idea.
Yeah.
And it was eye-opening, and I appreciate you being able to share that.
Yeah,
and
definitely so.
The opportunity to be here with you.
We're glad to have you.
Well,
very
yes,
much so.
We're very, very glad to have you. Well, I guess that's it for everybody. We thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. We love the support that you guys offer us, and we hope you come back next week. I guess we are out of here.
We're out of here. Thank you all very much.
Thanks for listening to the Tri-State Time Machine, brought to you by Alex R. White, PLLC, at SueDistractedDriver.com. If you have a memory you want Vanessa to talk more about, just send her an email at tstm@mail.com or post a comment on the Tri-State Time Machine Facebook page. Did you like the episode? Be sure to share it with friends and family. It's the only way we can continue this fun work that we do. You can find a link in the show notes that you can use to share it. And be sure to let our sponsors know you like the podcast as well. Their contact information can be found in this episode's show notes.